We
Here we
lost
go. Here
Gary.
we go.
Let me get Gary in. Hold on. I mean, I see
Back at
Gary.
you. Another edition.
There he is.
Yeah.
Gary's in the show me state.
All right, you can see me now. Okay.
We can see and hear you representing the Cowboys. I see. Love it.
Yeah.
I'm representing a little Negro League out there with the Chicago American Giants here, man. So having fun. Go ahead, Rob.
Nice.
Nice. That is
Black
great.
History Month.
Yeah, Black History Month. But I'm still going to be sporting a lot of these Negro League hats, man. Love them, love them, love them.
Yeah.
The wifey, Marcy, shout out to her. She's like, oh, you got another one? I'm like, yeah, this is my thing, man. I keep finding some good stuff, too. So hopefully the stream is coming over loud and clear for you guys. But, gentlemen, you're ready for another Talking Sports at 12, man, on this rapidly flying month of February. I'm going to check in with the fellas. Gary, it's good to have you back, my guy.
It's good to be back with you, gentlemen.
Welcome back, man. Hopefully all the families well. We missed you the last couple of weeks.
Well, they're not, but we're hanging tough.
Yeah. Good.
So we
our thoughts and prayers are with you all here.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Absolutely. I want to check in with you, Rob, and do a quick around the horn, as they say. We lose JQ, but we gain Gary back. So again, appreciate that. JQ had an amazing trip apparently this past weekend, just eating as much seafood as he could, enjoying in New Orleans, as they say, Louisiana. So we're gonna let him have some time to recover for sure. Is that correct, Rob?
Yeah, I think you're being nice, Andre. I think JQ got lit in New Orleans, and that's the reason why he's recovering.
It wasn't the seafood.
I don't think it was the seafood. I think it was more the alcohol.
Oh, goodness gracious.
No,
that's hilarious. But no. Yeah, it's all good. I'm going to get my internet stuff connected and check in. So how you feeling, Rob?
Hey, man, feeling good, man. Actually here in Atlanta, went to this place called Fox Barbecue. I don't know if you've been there before, Dre. Outstanding.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Took the team there tonight. Yeah. Outstanding. Some of the best greens and banana pudding. Oh, man. Smoked wings was almost right up there with yours, Dre.
Yeah, let's go.
Oh, yeah, that sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
Smoked wings. I am a wing connoisseur, as they say. My poor wifey has to put up.
They didn't have any asparagus, so I had to settle for collard greens.
This guy. This guy. All good. Gary, how you feeling this evening, man? How's Gary doing? Can you hear us? Gary.
Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. Look like we're having some technical difficulties.
We'll get it. That's the whole purpose of this. We'll figure out.
And Gary's in the middle of nowhere, Missouri, so bear with us.
That's okay. We'll come back to him too as well. So we got a lot of things to get. I'm going to close out some stuff here to make sure that you're getting some good resolution on my side as well, and we'll go from there. We'll get Gary in a quick second too to make sure he's good. And Rob, man, we got a lot of things to discuss, man. Yeah. I'm excited. And again, as we're trying to get our sea legs under us, and again, that's why we don't. We're trying to get better at this. Let me grab Gary one more time here. How's that? All right. How you feeling right there, Gary?
Back, and I'm back. All right. Let's see how it goes. We're good. I'm back on this Midwest and South stuff, man. The infrastructure is just not there. I'm telling you.
Yeah, we just let our viewers know that you're in the middle of nowhere.
How about the best? Yeah, right. Absolutely.
Yeah, like
Let's
I
get
said,
this party started.
We're building this as we fly, as they say. So yeah, follow us again. We're gonna have some fun here. Follow us on a couple of our pages here. Obviously, the main one is our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/12mansports, or another 12man sports. We do that. Our Talking Sports. We are on Twitter X, as always, which is at the number 12 THMAN Sports. And the YouTube channel is growing. We're going to kind of get this, again, slowly but surely getting better at that. And that is at another 12th Man Sports. So we got a lot of things to discuss. And let's start out with some college basketball. We got Cooper Flagg and Duke. They put on a show against Illinois. So I'll let you take that, Rob, and then Gary, you can chime in as well.
Yeah. I mean, you guys know how I feel about Duke. I'm not a fan. Obviously, I'm a Tar Heel fan, but I give credit where credit is due. And Duke is really starting to look like a national contender. And Cooper Flagg obviously got the best player in the country on their team. He's definitely going to be the number one pick in this summer's NBA draft, right? So there's going to be a lucky team out there. And when you watch Cooper Flagg play, man, he really can do it all. He can shoot it. He can post it up. He can handle the basketball. He can defend. And Duke is starting to really come together and gel as a team. I mean, they're loaded from a talent perspective, right? And that's not a horrible Illinois team. I mean, they're just starting to get some of their players back, of course. But, man, that was almost like a practice game for Duke, right? I mean, they leapfrogged Florida in the rankings, so now they're back up to number 2. And even in a weak year for the ACC, they still look like a legitimate national championship contender. Now, the SEC is loaded, right? I mean, the SEC's got Auburn. They've got Alabama. They got Florida, who's playing outstanding right now, as Gary probably knows, living close to, Gainesville, right? And, I mean, the SEC is just flat out loaded this year. Tennessee, Texas A&M, they might have 14 teams. They'll get at least 12 in. They might have 14 teams in the NCAA tournament. That is insane. The SEC is off to a record year. But I know we're supposed to be talking about Duke. I mean, they were impressive against Illinois. A lot of NBA scouts on hand in New York. And Cooper Flagg, man, you got to give him credit. He's the real deal. If the Pelicans don't make the playoffs, I hope we get the number 1 pick.
Rob, you want a Duke player?
Hey,
I think
I told you, when it comes to my pro teams, I want the best players. I don't care where they come from.
Right. I think Cooper Flagg would look good in the Blazer red. Love to have him.
Oh.
Yeah, no. Only Portland he wants to go to is back to his home state, Portland, Maine.
Oh, no.
There we go.
Oh, no.
So anything else to add to that, Gary?
No, I couldn't hardly hear any of it, so let's just move right along.
Go ahead and do the updated college basketball rankings, Rob.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about Duke being a national championship contender. Obviously, Auburn is right there too, and Auburn might have the second best player in the country, in Joe Broom. I mean, he's outstanding in the post. He can step out and shoot it as well. He's a great defender, shot blocker. I mean, Auburn has only lost 2 games. They've only lost 1 game in the tough SEC this year. They got some big-time road wins as well. They're definitely a true title contender as well. They're number 1, Duke's 2. Florida dropped. Obviously, Florida struggled a little bit with LSU this past weekend, and LSU is not a good college basketball program right now. And Florida struggled with them this past week. Maybe that's the reason why they dropped down to number 3. But they still pulled away late. Houston is playing Texas Tech right now, and I tell you what, this Houston team led by Kelvin Sampson is one of the best defensive teams in the country. L.J. Cryer is a heck of a ball player and can score the basketball. But I think Houston needs a second scorer. But defensively, they get after you, man. They're like a bunch of crazy dogs out there in the defensive end. They really defend at a high level. Tennessee, right now, they're number 5. They had a big-time road win over Texas A&M this past weekend. They got a good 1-2 punch on their ball club. And Alabama lost 2 games last week. They lost to Auburn and lost to Missouri. But they bounced back with a win this past week. They're number 6. But St. John's, man, Rick Pitino, you can say whatever you want about him, but, man, he can flat-out coach. There's no doubt about it. Rick Pitino has got St. John's, number 7 in the country. They're really shooting the basketball extremely well from the perimeter. And one thing about Rick Pitino team, they're gonna all be able to shoot the basketball from the 3-point line, right? They take advantage of that. You go back to him as a head coach in the late 80s at Providence with Billy Donovan and that group, right? They all can shoot the basketball. And when he even went to Kentucky, when you think back to when he went to Kentucky, they didn't have the elite players when he first got there, but he made sure they all could shoot the three, and that's what kept them competitive, right? And then he finally started to get the athletes to go along with the 3-point shooters, and that's when they started winning national titles. But this St. John team swept UConn. New York is excited, probably more excited about St. John's basketball than they are about the Knicks right now. I mean, New York is crazed about St. John's basketball. They haven't been this excited since the 80s when Lou Carnesecca was the head coach, when they had Chris Mullin, Mark Jackson, Bill Winnington, Walter Berry, all those NBA prospects. St. John's basketball is back.
Woo! There it is, St. John's.
Yeah, they're gonna be excited to watch.
Rick Pitino doesn't matter where he goes. He's going to have success.
He's a heck of a coach.
He's just he's one of those high IQ college basketball guys, and he's able to teach a system and adjust with the times. And that's good coaching. That's great coaching.
Great coaching. Hey, there's a nice little comment here from Uncle Les, and he wants to know what your thoughts are of the Oregon versus Wisconsin game.
Oh, this is from Uncle Wes, huh? And all right.
Well, Uncle Les, it looks like. Yeah, go
ahead. Yeah. Well, Oregon didn't show up in that game. They just like Rob had pointed out, they played in Oregon and they played in Oregon, and Oregon was able to beat them. And, Rob, you hit the nail on the head with that when you said, hey, they play on a neutral field, it's going to be a different game. And it sure was. It was a way different game. I was very disappointed in how Oregon performed in that game, to say the least. I thought they would give the Buckeyes a better game than they did. So that's my thoughts to Uncle Wes for tuning in on the show tonight.
He said Oregon versus Wisconsin, or did he mean the Buckeyes?
You mean the Buckeyes, or?
Oh, I thought it was the Buckeyes that he was talking about.
Yeah, I read Wisconsin, but
he's talking about the basketball game on Saturday. Oregon went on the road to beat Wisconsin.
Go ahead and take that one, Rob. I don't really.
Yeah, I mean, that was a big win for Oregon on the road this past Saturday, right? Wisconsin, 11 ranked in the country. Oregon is really starting to play good basketball at the right time, right? And Wisconsin's got one of the better guards in the country, in John Tanji. And Oregon was able to, not shut them down, but they contained them a good bit. They got a big overtime win on the road against Wisconsin. That's positioning Oregon to really get in the NCAA tournament. But that's a huge quad one win for Oregon to go on the road and beat Wisconsin this past weekend in overtime.
Yeah, good stuff. We talked about, the St. John's, Rob, and then I know we were talking specifically about the interesting thing that's happening with my Hurley guy here, and he was like, he was named the best coach, and then all of a sudden he's getting whipped up, UConn. You're like, yeah, he's like, hey, what's going on with the UConn right now? So I guess if you're a UConn, right, you're like, especially if they're trading for a Luka, that's a whole other conversation. But I mean, right now we talk about, and we briefly touched base on this last week too, but talk about that, Rob, as far as a sweep and what happened. And then again, just your thoughts on UConn and kind of, should there be a panic, or is it just more or less like, just kind of getting through this kind of tough spell?
Well, I mean, obviously, number one, they're not as good as they've been the last 2 years, right? The last 2 years, UConn this time of the year was just dump trucking people, right? Blowing teams out. They got better as the season went along these last 2 years. And obviously, number one, they're not as good as those teams. Number two, they've had some unfortunate luck too. I mean, their star freshman Liam McNeely has been out for quite a bit of time this year as well, and so that's been a huge blow. He's coming back, so maybe they can start to make a run, but I just don't think they're as good as they've been in the last couple of years. You know, they've had dominant bigs the last couple of years as well, and you know, Danny Hurley is a heck of a basketball coach. Just not be UConn's year. But hey, they're going to be right back there in the running, right? Danny Hurley does a phenomenal job as a head coach. I like the way they played it from a paint perspective, right? He's going to recruit well. You know, he's going to recruit New York City. You know, and I know St. John's going to give him a hell of a run for some of those New York City players now, right? He's going to recruit the New England area, and UConn recruits extremely well nationally. So you know they're going to be back in this at some point. But right now, St. John's got it rolling. They got a 3-game lead in the Big East, and it looked like they're well on their way for their first Big East regular season title since 1986. Like I said, you got to go back to the great Lou Cornacecki days with the red sweater on the sidelines. You know, we were all kids then. St. John's played back in those days. But hey, they were Jordan Ross, like I said. Chris
some of you were kids.
Oh, some of us were kids. Thank you, Gary. We were trying to tell on you, man.
Some of us were grown.
Rob, we were trying
So what? We were trying not to tell on you, Gary.
What'd you say? Yeah.
Believe me.
Hey, welcome back.
Looks like we got another comment.
Welcome back, Gary, too.
From Marcy.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. We're going to get Marcy. Yeah, I'm going to get Marcy. I'm going to say really quickly, Rob, before we get to Marcy's amazing comment. Thank you, babe, for checking in. Something about having those New York point guards, right? I mean, again, and we're benefits. I'm a huge Georgia Tech fan, so we're benefits. For some reason, Bobby Crimmins wish to just like recruit those New York point guards from the Stephon Marburys to the Kenny Andersons. He just, you know, he was like, I'm going to grab that. Like you said, Rob, with Danny Hurley. He can recruit well, too. It's just, you know, you got a really solid, you know, base within New York and everything like that, too. So it's a situation where I know exactly what you're talking about. I wish we had some more love up there like we used to, but just something about those New York point guards. They're tough. They're gritty. They can play. So that's my little 2 cents on that. But, yeah.
No, you hit. I mean, Stephon Marbury, Kenny Anderson, all those guys. Kenny Smith. I mean, he didn't go to Georgia Tech, but he was a heck of a basketball player from New York City. Mark Jackson.
Yeah.
I mean, you named it. And they've always produced really good guards. Yeah. Kimber Walker. Went to UConn as well. A lot of really good players come out of New York City, right? A lot of good guards. And they all can penetrate, right? Because, you know, playing in New York City, especially in the winter, you know, it's cold, it's windy. And so a lot of times they got to learn how to drive and penetrate to get to the rack because it's hard to shoot from the outside with all that wind and things when you're playing street ball, right? And so a lot of those guys have great penetration skills because you have to when you play on the playgrounds in New York City.
There it is. Good stuff. We're going to get to some comments. We're going to let Gary talk about the Cowboys draft soon here. But great question here. Marcy is asking about our thoughts about the Warriors and Jimmy Butler. Do they have a chance to, number one, make the playoffs and then go deep like Draymond thinks? And again, if you remember, during the All-Star game, Draymond was like, yeah, we're going to the playoffs. We don't know what he was smoking.
Oh, he said he's going to win the championship.
Probably get.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said say championship, exactly. Right now, I think it's a little premature, Draymond. I mean, I know you were feeling yourself with the Bay Area crowd. Again, I know we kind of talked about this earlier, Rob, and I'll get your thoughts, and Gary, you can join in too, in that, you know, you weren't totally a fan of Jimmy Butler. Obviously, I think he's a top player. We were concerned about him getting in the lane and just kind of, you know, not enough spacing with him and Steph Curry. But, you know, Steph has played with a little bit more, you know, little get up, you know, in his ride, if you will. He's excited to have another all-star on the team. Again, they have to gel, and, you know, it looks promising, but again, it's early. It's early. You got to get the chemistry up, I would say.
Yeah. Hey, I I thought the Warriors were crazy for trading for Jimmy Butler, right? I really like Andrew Wiggins as a defender, but looking at the early results, man, looked like Jimmy Butler has made a big difference in a team with the Warriors, and he's
Yes.
playing with a lot of energy too on both ends of the floor, offensively, defensively. Maybe he's kind of fresh from Miami suspending him all those games, right? He's got fresh legs. He's really getting after it defensively, right? I haven't seen Jimmy Butler play this exceptional on defense in quite some time. I mean, he's playing outstanding. And it looked like he's giving Steph some extra juice too. Like even Steph now is playing with a little bit more energy as well. So I mean, early results are they're looking really good, and they're not going to be a team you're going to want to see in the playoffs. I'm not ready to put them in championship category, like Draymond says. But look, I mean, they're going to be a team that no one's going to want to face come playoff time because they're experienced, right? Number one. When you look at Steph, 4 titles, Draymond Green on those championship teams as well. You look at the playoff success that Jimmy Butler's had in his career, right? So they're going to be a team that teams are not going to want to face in the playoffs, right? Just because of their experience. And they're going to be a tough out for anybody that they face in the playoffs for sure.
Well, early results on that are fantastic. And I thought that if Jimmy Butler had an opportunity to go somewhere, and get that fresh start, he's got the skill set to really help any team.
Yeah.
And when you're on a team that's, got the veteran chops that the Golden State Warriors have, well, I think that you're right, Rob. I don't think too many teams are going to want to face him in the playoffs in the West. Absolutely not.
Yeah. They're up to the number 9 seed right now. And when you look at the standings here, I mean, they're only a half game behind Dallas. Minnesota had an incredible comeback win tonight. They were down by 25, came back and beat OKC. Incredible win. But they're only a half game behind Dallas and a half game behind Minnesota. And they're only a game behind the Clippers for the 6th spot. So, I mean, they really can get up to that 6th spot, right? And they don't have to play in a play-in tournament. And, I mean, if they can get all the way up to number 6, might be hard to catch Houston, but they still got some time. But it might be hard to catch Houston, but if they can get up to the 6th spot, I mean, that's going to be a scary out for any team.
And we talked about that. We talked about having that championship caliber or the championship. They've gone through a couple of those battles, and you add a player of Jimmy Butler's caliber to that squad. And I know we were making fun of them trying to make these last-minute moves. They're just anyone. We can just anyone to pair with Steph. They're gonna try to again do one last run. Katie didn't want to run it back. There's been a lot of, and again, even from the side of the family, they weren't really happy with Jimmy Butler. I'm like, guys, this is an all-star, man. You got to keep that in mind. He's gonna literally add something, missing to that squad. Now we didn't predict all this, but I am excited to see what's happening with the Warriors. So they're thriving right now with Butler playing.
Yeah.
All right, we'll do some quick updates, Rob, and then I definitely want to talk about your mock draft because I think you put a 7-round mock draft, if I'm not mistaken.
First 7-round mock for this year.
Round, so that's amazing. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about that. Let's briefly go over any last quick updates you want to talk about. Michigan State. There's a couple updates with North Carolina and FSU William Mary at UMC Wilmington, and Michigan and Nebraska, excuse me, and then you got Kansas and Colorado.
Well, I'll just touch on a few of those real quick. Michigan State, I mean, obviously they're number 8 in the country. I don't look at them as the national title team, but I love Tom Izzo as a coach, though. I mean, his teams are always going to be physical. They're going to always defend, and they're going to always out-rebound you, right? And so from that standpoint, they're going to be a hard-nosed basketball team and tough to beat. I just don't see them as a team that can win 6 games in a row and win the NCAA tournament. So I'm going to say no to them being a title contender, but I wouldn't be surprised if they make it to the Final 4, right? Or at least the Elite 8, right? I think they're a good enough team, but I don't know if they're a national championship team. North Carolina, can't believe a team from the ACC is 11-6 in conference and on the bubble, and that's what North Carolina is. North Carolina is 18-11, 11-6 in conference. They've won 4 in a row, so it seems like they're starting to play the best basketball of the year. R.J. Davis is really struggling shooting the basketball this year, but it seems like he's getting hot at the right time. At 20 points tonight, hit some really clutch threes on the road against Florida State. And shout out to Leonard Hamilton, retiring this year. To me, he's one of the more underrated college basketball coaches. Did a phenomenal job at Florida State. He's retiring after this season. I want to give him a shout out. But yeah, the Carolina's still on the bubble. They've won 4 in a row. I think they got to win about 3 or 4 more games to clinch a spot in the tournament. So we'll see what happens. But it seems like they're starting to play their best basketball. They need their 5-star freshmen to start playing like sophomores, Drake Powell and Ian Jackson. It's time for them to start to step it up. Carolina don't have the bigs this year like they normally had years past. Normally you have the Armando Baycots and the Sean Mays of the world. They usually always have a big that can post and rebound and run the floor. And you don't see that from this Tar Heels team. Obviously, they're North Carolina, so they're going to have another good recruit class. But this is just not your typical North Carolina basketball club. And yeah.
Hey Rob, really quickly. And it seems to me like before, and this, I don't know if this was a Roy Williams thing or like even going back to Dean Smith, you guys used to have those small dynamic point guards like the Ty Lawsons, and I remember that. So it doesn't seem like that's kind of trending anymore. Do you know if there's a different, shift as far as, recruiting philosophy, or y'all used to have some dynamic?
Well, they have Elliot Cadeau, who's a 5-star recruit. And technically, Elliot Cadeau last year played in college basketball at he was actually supposed to be a senior in high school last year. So technically, even though he's a sophomore, he came to college a year early. So he's technically a freshman. And, he's a really good ball handler, can really distribute the basketball too. He's just not a scorer yet. But no, that philosophy hasn't changed. North Carolina, they like to play a fast-paced brand of basketball. If you look at their last 4 games, they're averaging about close to 90 points a game, or a little over 90 points a game. And that's the kind of pace where Roy Williams wanted to play at North Carolina, and also Hubert Davis wants to play at North Carolina, right? So they like those fast-paced point guards to push the pace. And they got another good one coming in next year, right? So they're going to keep recruiting those kind of players. They just don't have the bigs this year that they normally have that's going to rebound the basketball at a high level and get those fast breaks going. But, they like to push the basketball up and made baskets too.
We like it. All right. I'll really quickly talk about the Cowboys because I don't want Gary to drop off. So I know he's in the middle of but Rob and Gary, and I'm going to add my little 5 cents in here. So we had the mock draft, and the question is, we are going to ask, this is for you, Gary, get your moment to shine here. Will the Dallas Cowboys draft Ashton Jeanty here? So I know we kind of touched base on it 2 weeks ago, but here you go. That's the question, Gary. What do you think?
Well, I think if he's available, they would. I wouldn't if I were the Cowboys. Not that I don't think he's a dynamic player, because he is. I mean, if I was looking at his stats and, 2,739 yards, but his rushing, he had more rushing yards than 106 college teams. And unbelievable. I mean, the guy's a talent, but this is a really deep class. And if I were the Cowboys, I would not go with him. Because of Caleb Johnson, Marion Hampton, Trevian Henderson from the Buckeyes. I mean, I would go with any of those guys. I think all those guys would be good. And with all of what the Cowboys need, it's not just a running back that's going to fix it. So that's where I would go with it. Will they take him? I think he's going to be, if he's available. Jerry Jones, he's either going to go with that and push hard to get that. But my only problem with him is the level of competition. Would he have had those same stats if he were in the Southeastern Conference or if he were in the Big Ten Conference or whatever. And he wouldn't have. He would have been closer to those other guys. So I don't know how much better he is than the other running backs, the other top running backs. What's your take on that, Rob? Do you think that he's
Well, obviously his numbers would have been tapered a little bit, but I think if he was with the right program in the SEC with a elite offensive line, of course, then yes, of course, I think he could have still put up some big time numbers. But as far as the Cowboys drafting him at number 12, I agree with Gary. I think if he's available, he's definitely going to be in the conversation, right? I have him going slightly ahead of the Cowboys pick. I have him going number 10 to Chicago. You know, Ben Johnson, new head coach in Chicago right now, right? He's got Caleb Williams. He's got a chance to develop a young quarterback. And you saw what Ben Johnson did in Detroit with that 1-2 punch at running back. You add an Ashton Genty in the mix to help a Caleb Williams out in his development. And that was huge. So I have him going slightly ahead of the Cowboys pick at number 10 right now. And hey, I like where Rico Dotto played in the second half of the year last year, too, right? And you know, today's NFL, I'm not sure if Ricky Dotto is the every down back. You may still want another running back to rotate in there with them. But when you really think about it, to Gary's point, Dallas have some other needs. I mean, they just lost an offensive lineman to retirement. They have some offensive lineman needs that they need to take care of. Dallas needs to defend the run better on defense, right? So you got to get some defensive line help as well for you Dallas Cowboys. So those are some other things that they need to fix in addition to possibly getting another weapon on offense. They probably use another receiver, too, to help CD Lamb. So they have some other needs in their football. I have them taking Kelvin Banks right now, number 12, offensive tackle from Texas, who I think will be a plug-and-play starter day one in the NFL, and that'll really help them in the trenches as well. But I definitely think he'll be in play, as to Gary's point, if he's available at the number 12 spot.
What about the Raiders? Think the Raiders would pull the trigger on Gentry? I know I've seen a little bit of that today.
That could be a possibility. I mean, I think the Raiders are going to do everything they can. I'm sure they're going to sign a veteran quarterback free agent, but I also think they're going to try to go after a young quarterback in this draft. If they have a way of getting up to Ward and Shador, I think that's going to be their first objective. I actually have them trading up from 6-4 to draft Shador Sanders right now. I think it's like my third straight mock. I've had that now. So I'm sticking with that. I think if they can get their hands on Ward or Shador, I think that's going to be the first option. If they can't get one of them, I think they can go best player available or Ashton Genty or try to improve their offensive defensive lines as well or go to corner.
Well, if Gentry was not available to the Cowboys at the number 12 pick, what I would like to see the Cowboys do is trade back a few picks. There's still going to be solid running backs in there. There's still going to be offensive linemen in there. Trade back and get some more picks, maybe some later round picks, whatever. But they need so many things that's what I would hope that they would do if he wasn't available.
Yeah. Looks like we got a question in the chat. What do the Cowboys do with Parsons in the offseason?
And Rob, I'm going to pause because we know that Richmond, shout out to Richmond, going back to our NCC days. Hopefully he's cool with that. But man, Eagle fan.
You know, he's a dynamic player. No doubt about it. But it's going to depend on, you know, what can they get out of the guy? If they can bring in a haul of picks with the edge rushers that they have in the draft, we need bodies. Yes, he's a playmaker, but we also need young talent, and that's also going to be under the, salary cap restrictions and all that stuff. So I say that depends on what they get. If they get a lot of picks, they get a lot out of him, some ridiculous amount, let him go. Just not to anybody in the NFC.
And I think Dallas would be crazy to part ways with Michael Parsons when you got one of the best defensive players in the league.
Oh, yeah.
You got to find a way to keep him on your roster, right?
That's the problem, though, Rob. You know, you go out and you pay him the big bucks, then with as many needs as the Cowboys, you know, have, you know, they've got to make some sort of a big splash move. Maybe that would be that big move where they could pull out some high draft picks and bring in some new talent and let him go somewhere else and flourish. I would hate to see him go, but with the that's what you got to kind of juggle in this salary cap, you know, hell that all these teams are in.
Yeah. Well, the salary cap just went up a lot more.
We talked about that last.
A lot more than the organization thought it would. So, I mean, if you're the Dallas Cowboys, and you cannot let Michael Parsons walk out of that building. I'm sorry. I don't care how much you're going to get in return from him. You know, as much as you want draft picks and things of that nature, you don't know. I mean, obviously, every team wants their draft picks to turn out and things of that nature, but they don't always do, right? When you got a player who's as versatile as Michael Parsons,
and that
who can rush the passer, who can drop in coverage, who can do all the things that he can do on the defensive side of the football.
Yeah.
I mean, when you have players like that, those are players you got to keep, and you got to find a way to build around them, right? Same thing with the Cincinnati Bengals we talked about last week. If you're the Bengals, you got to find a way to keep Joe Burrow happy. You got to pay the two receivers, T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. You got to find a way to keep Trey Hendrickson. You already let Bates get out of the building, and you saw how much that's hurt their defense, right? So if you're the Bengals, you got to, when you have those kind of players, you got to find a way to keep them, and you got to find a way to build around them. The Dallas Cowboys have 4 fifth-round picks. 4. Now, that's a chance. I mean, you hit on 2 of those 4, you improve the depth of your roster already, right? So, I mean, you got to hit on some of these draft picks.
Right.
I mean, they got 4 first. They don't have a 4th-round pick, but they got 4 fifth-round picks.
Yeah,
you got 2 6th-round picks.
Yep.
You can even package some of those picks to move up in the draft a little bit to even get some playmakers, right? So they got a lot of back-end picks in the draft that they can play with, but you got to keep Michael Parsons with the Dallas Cowboys.
And Rob doesn't even like the Cowboys.
Right. I just say, like I said, it depends on what they get out of him. If they can make a haul like they did like the Cowboys did back in the 90s with the Herschel Walker trade or something like that.
Oh, there it is.
See ya.
Yeah.
Wow. Gary's going to get rid of the best player, Rob.
Wow.
Now,
look at Scott's comment. And Scott's on the money there.
Yeah.
31 other teams will try to sign Parsons, and Dallas does not re-sign him. He's the best in the league at his position and in his prime. And he's right. I mean, that kind of elite talent, you just cannot get rid of him if you're Cowboys. I mean, yeah, you can get a lot in return for him, but
I'll tell you what, you know,
we'll try to replace
Scott. Is Scott's a Philadelphia Eagle fan? Is that
correct?
Okay.
Yeah.
Scott, I appreciate you writing these in, and I wanted to tell you that I appreciate the stance that the Philadelphia Eagles made in not going to the White House.
Oh, yeah.
I respect him that much more.
Oh. Wow.
We got to stay out of that.
Yeah.
We went there. Yeah, we're trying to keep it a certain way, but yeah,
right.
Other than
apologize to the listeners.
Yeah, no, it's all good. We're going to talk about that now. Now, this is the thing, Rob.
I said agreed, by the way.
We love it, man. We love it. We're going to talk about the mock draft, right? And Scott, we appreciate you joining in too, because
thank you, Scott.
We're gonna replace the Bengals, and maybe we'll let Rob talk about who the Eagles are going to draft in the draft. As I add that, I'm going to briefly talk about this, Rob, because we appreciate you. And again, I encourage everybody to go to the Talking Sports Facebook page where we posted, Rob said his first 7th-round mock draft. I give him a lot of credit. I like this mock draft better, Rob, than last week. That's hilarious. What's going on?
I think the Eagles have been denounced as America's bird.
What's going on?
Oh, come on. I don't
Man,
think so.
so let me get back to this before I lose my thought here. Rob, last week we had a mock draft where you had the Falcons drafting Tyler Warren, talented tight end. And again, you said he is everything that Kyle Pitts should have been. Now, my only argument to that, and we'll let you get back to your amazing mock draft, is that if you look at what our new offensive coordinator, Zach Robinson, he ran the 11 personnel 87.1% of the time, which 11 personnel, that's one running back, 3 wide receivers. And the current way that the tight end is actually structured in Zach Robinson's offense is that he's more of a blocker, going to catch some balls some of the time. So he's not that as dynamic as a Kyle Pitts. So, whenever we're looking at this, and this is a shift from what happened whenever Arthur Smith ran the Falcons, because he was definitely in the 12 personnel, which is 2 tights, one running back, 2 tight ends. So in his offense, he needed a dynamic catcher like Kyle Pitts, who hasn't obviously lived up to that. But again, that's what I was going to say as far as my thought as far as last week. I'm like, yeah, if we draft a tight end, I promise you Falcons Nation will go ballistic. Again, we are looking for an edge or a defensive player. Hell, we'll go all defense if we can. I know we need another wide receiver at some point. We'd love to get a safety, but again, I just had to get that out there because I was like, looking at the way that the Falcons are structured right now. So that's my 2 cents, and I'll let you kind of talk about the mock draft, my guy. Thank you.
Yeah, getting to the mock here, not a lot of changes at the top here. Still got Cam Ward, number 1 to Tennessee. I still have him rated slightly ahead of Shadir Sanders as the number 1 quarterback in the draft. Like his mobility in the pocket, like his arm talent as well. So I have him going number 1 to Tennessee. Abdul Carter is just announced he's not going to be working out at the combine. They got him going number 2 to Cleveland. Hey, Cleveland might be trading Myles Garrett. Abdul Carter is the best edge rusher in this draft. He put on a show in the college football playoffs. He was outstanding. He was unblockable. Travis Hunter, I think he'll be in play for Cleveland at 2 as well. But I think ultimately they go with Abdul Carter. I got Hunter going number 3 to the Giants. Obviously, he can play corner, play wide receiver. He'll be able to do a lot of things and have an impact on the game in a lot of areas. As I mentioned earlier, I got Vegas trading up to 4 to draft Shadur Sanders. I got Jacksonville taking Will Campbell, offensive tackle, LSU. Got New England trading down to number 6. They draft Mason Graham, probably one of the better defensive tackles in the draft from Michigan. Will Johnson, corner from Michigan, going to the Jets at 7. I tell you pair him with Sauce Gardner, and you got yourself 2 elite corners with the Jets if this was to come into fruition. Carolina, I got them taking Tyler Warren, right? You look at Bryce Young in his height as a quarterback, and obviously that's concern. But when you look historically at some of the short quarterbacks that have been in the league, big tight ends have been their best friend, right? And having a guy like Tyler Warren could be a big help for the growth and development of Bryce Young at the quarterback. As much as I hate to see that, being a Saints fan, no one seeing him in the division. I got him going number 8 to Carolina. Saints still, it's like my 3rd straight draft. I got the Saints taking Jalen Walker, edge rusher from Georgia. All indications are the Saints are going to move to a 3-4 defense with a new defensive coordinator this year, Brandon Staley. And Jalen Walker will be the perfect edge rush type for a 3-4 defense, right? Speed off the edge, etc. So I have him going to the Saints. And we already talked about Genty, number 10 to Chicago. We talked about Calvin Banks going to Dallas. Atlanta, I got him taking Mikael Williams, edge rusher from Georgia, who's an elite.
Here we go.
Right? Obviously, he had some injury concerns this past year, but if healthy, he could be a top 10 pick in this draft, no doubt about it. He's a physical specimen. Could be an edge in a 4-3 defense, right? Like I said, an elite talent. Definitely, like I said before this year, we definitely consider the top 10. Maybe some injury concerns drop him down a little bit. And a shout out for Scott. If the Eagles are in a position to draft the best player available, I mean, they almost don't have any weaknesses right now. We look at best offensive line, the defensive line that they have, linebackers, secondary, running back, receivers. So I got actually taken Matthew Golden, another weapon on offense, wide receiver from Texas, in the first round, right? Obviously, A.J. Brown misses his fair share of games in the regular season. You get another weapon at wide receiver, and Matthew Golden in Texas right there could be a big play right there as well. Now, let's go over. I did 7 rounds, so we'll go over our teams in here in the draft. The Cowboys in the second round got to take an edge rusher from Ole Miss, Princely Umamilan, right? One of the elite edge rushers in college football. And one of the things the Cowboys need is a defensive tackle, too. I got to take a Joshua Former, defensive tackle from Florida State in the third round. He's strong as an ox, right? Not a great pass rusher, but he's a guy that can really stuff the run, really strong at the point of attack as well. I mentioned Dallas doesn't have any fourth-round picks, but they got 4 5-round picks. They go back to the offensive line again. They get Xavier Truss, big offensive tackle from Georgia. And then they draft DJ Giddens, running back from Kansas State, who's really solid. He's got good balance running the football as well. And then Eli Cox, a 3-year starter, center at Kentucky. He actually had a better sophomore and junior year than he had senior year. He was probably expected to go a little bit higher in the draft. Drops a little bit by his senior year performance. And then with the last 5th-round pick, I got to take another wide receiver, Keandre Lambert-Smith, wide receiver from Auburn, started his career at Penn State, ended his career at Auburn, 6'1", got good hands, good speed. Then we go to the 6th round. The Cowboys got him taking Brandon Adams, cornerback from Central Florida. I think he could be a versatile defensive back, play corner, maybe even can play some safety as well. Then another running back in the 6th round, LeQuint Allen, running back from Syracuse. Last 2 years had over 1,000 yards rushing at Syracuse as well. And then in the 7th round, I got a guy that can flip the field position for you. Punter, James Burnett from Alabama, the best punter in the draft. Cowboys in the 7th round there. Then I'll go to the Atlanta Falcons. We talked about the 1st-round pick. 2nd round, I got to take a Siobhan Rebel Jr., cornerback from East Carolina, 6'1". He's got long arms as well. Good extension, putting his hands on the receivers very well. He's got great hips as far as turning and running as well. He's a guy that could possibly even slip to the 1st round. The only reason I haven't gone to the 2nd round right now is because of his level of competition. So we'll see where that goes. Falcons don't have a 3rd round or a 5th-round pick. But in the 4th round, I'm taking Will Howard, quarterback from Ohio State. All indications are I don't think Kirk Cousins is going to be on their roster this year. So they're going to need a backup quarterback. Will Howard just winning the national championship at Ohio State could be a guy that can back up Michael Penix. And the Falcons don't have a 6th-round pick. So in the 7th round, I have taken Cooper Mays, center from Tennessee. I'm surprised he didn't get invited to the combine, right? And here's a guy that's been a 4-year starter at Tennessee, been solid. Obviously, when you look at the 7th round, if you get a starter in the 7th round, you get lucky. But obviously, you're looking for a guy that's going to be a depth kind of player to give you some rotational help if somebody goes down as a starter. And Cooper Mays will be able to provide that. And with the Saints, got us taking Omarion Hampton, running back from North Carolina, in the 2nd round. Obviously, Alvin Kamara had a really good year last year, right? But he's getting into those, knocking on those early 30s right now. And then a running back that we drafted from TCU, we can't keep him healthy. Now, when he plays, he's explosive, right? So I think you get another running back on Murray Hampton, who's another explosive running back as well. Catch the ball out of the backfield. Saints have 2 3rd-round picks. I got to take Tate Rutledge, 6'6", 320-pound offensive lineman from Georgia. He's a versatile lineman, too. Can play guard or tackle.
Like that.
And then I got to take a Chandler Martin, another guy that surprisingly wasn't invited to the combine. He's only 5'11", but he's about 230, 235 pounds. He can run sideline and sidelines. He's really growing, really climbing a lot of NFL draft boards. Linebacker from Memphis. Saints have 2 4th-round picks. I was taking Elick Anya Manor, wide receiver from Stanford, right? Underrated receiver too. 6'2", strong hands, good possession receiver. Actually ran a 4.42. We'll see what he runs at the combine. See if he runs in that level.
Wow.
And then I also have us taking B-Hall Cone, cornerback from Western Kentucky, a tall corner, 6'2", long arms, good balance out there, good ball skills as well. Level of competition got him going in the 4th round at the moment. Saints don't have a 5th round pick. In the 6th round, I have us taking Yaya Black, defensive tackle from Iowa. This guy's a stud. 6'6", 300.
Yeah.
6'6", 337 pounds, right? He's a stud. He's a run stuffing guy. Only reason he's going to 6th round, his performance has been up and down. So why you want to see some consistency. So here's a guy a team's going to take a chance on to be that run stuffing defensive tackle for you. And then last but not least, in the 7th round.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rob. Finish up.
In the 7th round, I have the Saints taking Colin Oliver, edge rusher from Oklahoma State. He's a guy that only played 2 games his senior year. But if you look at his tape in his previous years, pretty solid edge rusher. Probably if it wasn't for his injury, he could be a 3rd or 4th round pick. So you take a flyer on him in the 7th round.
Hey, Rob, that Hampton that you had the Saints taking in the 2nd round, I believe.
Yep.
6 feet, 220 pounds, though. That's a good back. That he's on my wish list.
Yep.
So that would be definite. Doesn't he play similar to Kamara?
He's good. He's really good out of the back. He's a breakaway runner, and he's also the unique thing about Hampton is he plays bigger than he's 220. I mean, I've seen him run over people too, right? So he's a guy that's great at breaking tackles. He's got breakaway ability. Yeah, I think he could be a similar player to a Kamara. Great balance, great vision, which you look for in a running back, right? So he's actually a guy. I got him going in the 2nd round of the Saints. I would not be surprised if he makes it back in the 1st round.
Yeah.
Now, see, Scott's got another
Just
comment.
a quick comment.
Garrett to the Falcons will be nice in the trade.
Yeah, that's tough, Scott, because we only have 5 picks, as Rob alluded to in his mock draft overview. And obviously we lost one for Kirk Cousins for tampering, and then losing the 3rd round to the trade for Matthew Judon, which didn't go well in this instance. You have to think if you're trying to get picks this year, Scott, that's going to be tough, man. So I think if we want to rebuild, then you talk about some cap space. We're going to have to cut a lot of people. It sounds great. I just don't know if it's good in theory. If we were one player away, that would be kind of a move to make, but I don't think we're quite there yet. I think we got to get some more depth on our defense. Don't get me wrong, love to have Garrett. He's a dynamic player, but I still think cap space, you definitely need some more depth right now. So that's kind of a tough situation that I would say we're going like at this instance.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Andre. And it's going to be I think it's going to take 2 first-round picks to trade for Myles Garrett kind of talent too, right? And you mentioned the Falcons. They only have 4 picks in this draft, actually. And, it's going to be really tough to mortgage your future. You took a chance on Judon last year. Didn't quite give you the return on investment. Look, now Myles Garrett is 10 times better than Matthew Judon, so I should be making it.
Yeah, but I don't think it's going to take 2. I think it may take one 1st round and maybe a 2nd or 3rd. You really think it's going to take 2 to pull him out
when
of
you
there?
look at positions in the NFL that are the most important positions,
I would love to have him. I would love to have him paired up.
Yeah.
The other side of Mike.
When you look at the kind of production and the impact that Myles Garrett has on the game from an edge rushing perspective, and is one of the most important positions in football, and he's in his prime right now. Maybe you give up a 1st round, a 2nd, and maybe a player. But I think if you're only doing picks, it may take 2 first-round picks to get him. I mean, he's that good. I mean, he plays to run well. He rushes the passer. and it could very well take 2 first-round picks to get a player like Miles Garrett for sure.
So who would you rather have on your team? Would you rather have Garrett or would you rather have Micah Parsons?
Oh,
And if so, if Garrett gets 2 first rounds, and you think Parsons is a better player,
Yeah.
what would the Cowboys get? Would the Cowboys get 2 first rounds
Absolutely.
and a third or something out of it? And if that's
Micah's a little younger than
worth it.
Miles Garrett too. I think Micah will get
Yeah.
2 first-round picks too. And I would give the slight edge to Parsons because of his versatility. When you look at Michael Parsons, he's a guy that can play on the line. He can play as a regular drop-down linebacker, right? You know, Parsons could do a little bit more from a versatility standpoint. Now, you don't expect Michael Parsons to go and stop the run. You know, now Garrett is a guy that can hold the edge in the running game and he can rush the passer. So I would still give the slight edge to Parsons, but Miles Garrett is a freak of nature.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's such a great athlete, man. He can go to basketball and score 30 on him.
Yeah. Dynamic player. Good stuff. Let's wrap this up, man. I know we've gone for a nice solid hour, and I want to get any last minute thoughts that you guys have, and that way we can kind of get my internet cleared up for the next show too. It's been a nice little ride for all of us. But anything last you want to kind of talk about, Rob, or any shout outs you want to do for the last part of the show?
I think for me, I'll just close with a couple of quarterback situations. We look at Matthew Stafford and Aaron Rodgers, right? Obviously, the Rams are giving Matthew Stafford the opportunity to see what his trade value is going to be, which is kind of a shocker. We kind of touched on this last week. I mean, Matthew Stafford, in my opinion, is still playing at a high level, even at 37 years old. I mean, he's still got great zip on his footballs. He's got a strong arm. Obviously, you don't expect him to run no tush pushers or anything like that, or be a running quarterback. But he's a great distributor of football, and I think he can still help some teams win. I think ultimately the Rams don't want to lose him, but I know he wants a certain contract, and I know the Rams may be on the fence and giving him that as a 37-year-old quarterback. So I think that's what it comes down to. Obviously, I think the Raiders are going to pick up the phone and talk to the Rams. I think the Steelers are going to pick up the phone and talk to the Rams. I think the Jets will pick up the phone and talk to the Rams as well. So there are definitely some teams out there that would at least kick the tires with the Rams and see what they can possibly get at that, for the quarterback, fix their quarterback position. Then Aaron Rodgers, right? Is he going to retire? Is he coming back? Looks like all indications that he wants to keep playing now, right? I think he's done, even though he did play a little better toward the end of the season. I think if the Raiders don't have any success in going after Matthew Stafford, I think the Raiders are the one team to watch with Aaron Rodgers.
Hey, Rob.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
hey, Rob.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Ooh, hold on. I'll let you get in that too, Gary, too. So the question is, if the Rams trade Matthew Stafford, Jimmy Garoppolo is the backup quarterback right there. You can't tell me that going into the season that the Rams are going to go with Jimmy Garoppolo as a quarterback.
Hey, I mean, obviously, I think it's obviously come down to the Rams don't want to pay Matthew Stafford elite kind of quarterback at his age. I think that's what it. And there could be concerns about his health, right? He's had some injury concerns over the last few years too, right?
Right.
I think there's some concerns there. I really think ultimately the Rams want to keep Stafford, but they want to keep him at the right price. They probably just don't want to pay the price that Stafford is asking for. And that's why they're giving Stafford the opportunity to see what his value is on the open market, right? So I really think the Rams want Stafford back, but just giving him the opportunity to see what else is out there for him.
Gotcha. Go ahead, Gary. I'm sorry.
Well, I want to talk about the same things. First the Matthew Stafford. What about the Giants? Pittsburgh and Minnesota could all be in play for Stafford if the Rams end up parting ways with them.
I think the Giants. I don't think the Vikings though. I think the Vikings either bring back Sam Darnold or they roll with the number one pick from last year, J.J. McCarthy. I don't think the Vikings will be in play, but I agree with you on the Giants.
And then as far as Aaron Rodgers, so I went to the FanDuel odds on teams. And
Nice.
yeah, so Aaron Rodgers, the best odds are for Vegas at plus 310, also with the Rams at plus 310. Pittsburgh is behind them at plus 410. Indy's plus 490. Minnesota's plus 610. Tennessee is plus 730. And the 49ers, believe it or not, are in the in the long shot at plus 790 to bring him in. Why them? I don't know. I just thought that was interesting. You know, you can bet on anything in Vegas, right? I mean, there isn't anything that's off the table. It's crazy.
Anything.
I mean,
I'm not a gambling man.
You're the
I see some of
49ers.
the things that they bet on, and it's unreal.
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say, Gary, the 49ers, if they're not happy with this, they've had a couple of years of Brock Purdy. Now, this year they had a ton of injuries. Obviously, losing Christian McCaffrey. You got Deebo Samuels, possibly wanting to be traded. There's a lot of dissension among the ranks. So if you're going to say, hey, we think that we've got a lot of pieces, and Matthew Stafford is that missing piece, which he could be, like I said, let him heal up, and that could be a situation.
That was for Aaron Rodgers.
I am curious as far as
that was for those.
Oh, was that Aaron Rodgers for the 49ers?
Yeah, those were all for Aaron Rodgers. Those were the odds on Aaron Rodgers.
My apologies. Okay. Then that suits my conversation. Okay, gotcha. Okay.
But like I said,
I don't know about.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, I
ahead.
definitely wouldn't. I wouldn't take Aaron Rodgers and all of his. You're already dealing with the team that has some issues in the 49er organization amongst players, contracts, whatever it is. So you really want to bring in a quarterback that's going to, throw gasoline on a fire. I would love it.
Right.
I would love it, but I don't think that. I think they're a good organization, and I don't see them doing that. And that may just be, it may be just be they're throwing their name in there amongst these things to kind of keep the price of. Isn't Purdy's contract now? Doesn't he go in to get a big contract? So maybe this is one of those things that would kind of slow the roll on that a little bit and better price.
Marcy's comment.
He's not going to the 49ers.
She said Rodgers to the Niners. No.
Yes.
Hey, Rob.
Yes.
And this is the last point. No. This is the last point. The dominoes, as far as with Aaron Rodgers, I know Gary's going to love this too, is that, Garrett Wilson wasn't a huge fan of Aaron Rodgers. And then now we're looking at Devontae Adams, and Devontae Adams, they're like, I don't know if this is the same, situation. So now there's some rumblings that Devontae Adams may be on his way out. I mean, again, after all you traded for this dude, this is a domino effect with Aaron Rodgers not being being assigned.
There's even rumblings that Devontae Adams is interested in possibly even going back to Green Bay to play with Jordan Love. When you look at Green Bay in the playoffs, they actually played the Eagles as tough as anybody in the playoffs this past year. And the Packers' top 3 wide receivers was out in that game. And he had offensive linemen out in that game. And they probably played the Eagles as tough as anybody in the playoffs this year. Now, mind you, I think the Eagles were a little rusty because Jalen Hurts had missed a couple of games at the end of the season.
Right.
But the Packers played the Eagles as tough as anybody. I mean, they won it down by 6 points in the fourth quarter, 16-10 in that game to the Eagles, right? So obviously with a few additional pieces, and like I said, the Green Bay Packers had Andre Peterson and Gary Schaefer out there playing wide receiver in the fourth quarter in that game.
We were out there. We were competitive, weren't we? Yeah.
But yeah, they were still competitive, right? But they scored enough points.
Right.
The defense was
That's hilarious.
Well, they were a hell of a lot more competitive than Kansas City in that game. I was
and the Commanders.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to give a quick shout out to as we get ready to wrap this up, man. That's a good point. Richmond didn't see Stafford leaving Hollywood. Yeah, that's a good call. Hey, I'm gonna give a quick shout out, Rob. I do want to point out your Ovechkin comment that he gets a hat trick.
Yeah.
Only 13 goals away from Wayne Gretzky's record. That is outstanding. This dude has been a dynamic player, scorer. In you talk about just rewriting records, and this guy is an amazing player too. So I just want to give a quick acknowledge him.
And that's a good point. And when you look at Alex Ovechkin, what he's doing at his age, and that Wayne Gretzky record, most people thought was unbreakable.
Right.
And he's more than likely going to break it. And he's probably going to break it this year, right? I was looking at a story the other day about what he's doing at his age and what LeBron James is doing at his age. They're both defying odds on what those guys are doing at their age and what the level that they're playing in is insane. So kudos to Alex Ovechkin and LeBron James for what they're accomplishing at their age is defying all odds. We haven't really seen maybe Tom Brady, but Tom Brady's a quarterback. He just has to stand back there in the quarterback in the pocket and get protection. But what those two guys are doing as athletes at their age and running the floor and skating up and down on the ice ring and things of that nature, I don't think we've ever seen two athletes do that at their age, what Alex Ovechkin and LeBron James are doing.
Agreed. Absolutely.
Good stuff. Well, like I said, again, we can spend a lot more time on these amazing topics, Rob. I know we'll definitely touch base. Obviously there's some good points as far as, Vlad Guerrero. I know you guys are excited about him opening to join the Yankees. Of course, you put that in there, Rob. So that's a pretty interesting situation. That comes in because you're like, I know. Losing Juan Soto, that's craziness too, man. So, again, good stuff.
I bought a Juan Soto jersey last year too, and he left already.
Oh my God, that's disrespectful, as the kids say. I want to talk about, Rob. We do say college football coaches on the hot seat. I was at trivia tonight, and there was a Florida State fan, and she was like, "I can't believe I'm." I'm like, "Yeah, you keep on." Norville may have some challenges, man. We'll see what happens this season, man. But she was just like lamenting on how upset she is at FSU right now. I'm like, you're not the only one.
Yeah, and look, Mike Norville in Florida State last season was 12-0 and just missed the college football playoffs. And I thought they were a team that should have made the playoffs. So that probably bought him a little time after the bad year. But I tell you what, if he have another year next year, like they did this past year, then Norville could definitely be on his way out for sure. There's no doubt about it. Sunbelt Billy in Florida, Billy Napier. Now look, Florida to me started playing really well at the end of the season, and and then they got DJ Legway, who could be a star in college football next year for the Gators. So when you look at that Florida organization, you got to give them a lot of credit, their athletic director and president, for sticking with Billy Napier going into his fourth year, because I think they see that it could be on the verge of turning a corner. And DJ Legway has the potential to be one of the best quarterbacks in college football next year at Florida. But that being said, if Sunbelt Billy goes 6-6, I don't think he'll be able to go 6-6 next year. They're looking for him to knock the door down next year and at least get to 9-3 or 10-2 at Florida next year. Now, Luke Fickell was a guy I thought was going to be on the hot seat with Wisconsin, but they just gave him a contract extension. So I think he's good. Brian Kelly at LSU going into his fourth year, right? He's been 8-4, 9-3 kind of every year, right, at LSU. I think he's got to be 10-2, 11-1. LSU's got a star-studded roster coming back next year. They do have to replace some big-time offensive linemen. So that's the one area that they definitely have to make sure they have some good reinforcements and replacements. But he's a guy that you can say could be on the hot seat going into next season. And then Gary's favorite coach, Lincoln Riley, USC, right? He's not getting it done at USC. And then
Thank you,
Gary's
Rob.
other favorite coach, Mario Cristobal at Miami.
Here it is.
I think he's a guy. And look, I mean, one thing I will say about Mario Cristobal is Miami better than they were before he was there? Yes. But they're still just coming so close, and they seem like they fall apart at the end of the year.
Well, I
And
think he's with that said, Rob. As a Hurricane fan, he's an outstanding recruiter.
absolutely.
Keep him as a recruiter. Let him talk to the boosters. Let him talk to the parents. Let him do whatever he's doing with that. Keep his ass off the sideline.
You want him as your general manager, right? Not head coach, right?
Exactly.
I mean, Sam Pittman
Exactly.
in Arkansas going into the 6th year. He's a guy to watch. Some people say Mark Stoops is on the hot seat at Kentucky, but I just don't see it. I mean, Mark Stoops, I think, does a phenomenal job at Kentucky. I mean, they're a program that's not going to compete for national championship. They're a basketball school. But, I mean, if you go 8-4, 9-3 at Kentucky, you're doing a hell of a job. I just don't see Mark Stoops as on a hot seat. I think he's a guy that can stay at Kentucky as long as he want to stay there, in my opinion. I think he does a great job there. And then the one that Andre, I'm surprised I didn't mention, Brent Venables, Oklahoma, right? And
Thought about that.
Yeah.
Thought about that. Yeah.
Yeah, he's practically been 6-6 every year. And, I mean, that's not going to cut it at Oklahoma, especially in a tough ACC. I mean, SEC.
Yeah, you're good. Hey, and we wrap up, Rob. And it's funny because whenever we're talking about coaches on the hot seat, and I'm going to give another plug, a shout out to Richmond. Just last year, it shows you how fans are. Y'all wanted to fire Nick Sirianni, and look what happened. The following year, y'all won the Super Bowl. So, what a difference a year makes. I know we're pretty fans can be a little passionate.
It's just amazing.
Exactly. And sometimes, it's like, kind of calm
cooler heads have to prevail.
And, each year, cooler heads absolutely have to prevail, Gary. So we got a lot of shout outs to Uncle Les, Richmond, Marcy. I think this is Shalina here doing some quick posting back. We just want to appreciate you for your interaction. I know we got to get better. I'm going to talk to myself because I know the stream is a little wonky here, but we'll get that figured out. I'll use a different stream next week to make sure that everything's clear. We're just kind of figuring this out as we fly. I know Gary's looking good. Rob is coming out with a strong signal. So we appreciate you guys for putting up with that too. So any last words, gentlemen, before we wrap up this 224 edition of Talking Sports?
We'll see y'all the next week. It's almost March Madness time. Exciting time.
March Madness is right around the corner. Man.
I've got one.
And go ahead,
you're going to see the Vermont Catamounts. I love saying that every March.
Out to this gentleman at the Travel Center of America. Went to 5 different mechanic shops. None of them can do it. I went into this last guy. Not only did he do all the work for me, he charged me $25.
Wow.
I appreciate it, man. Colton, you're my new hero.
I hope you gave him 50.
Oh, he's eating lunch for a few days, that's for sure. Wow.
Okay, good.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And nice I'll do that every time I'm through the area. Go ahead, Rob.
Hey, it's Vermont Catamounts time of year. So, hey, next week, if you're on the East Coast, we want to hear from y'all in Vermont, right? It's March Madness. It's the time of year we talk about the Vermont Catamounts. So we want to hear y'all at 11 or whatever time we're doing the show next week on the East Coast. We want to hear from Vermont. And, of course, Gary's old neck of the woods, Gonzaga, right? This is Gonzaga's time of the year, too. We want to hear from the Pacific Northwest as well. And New Mexico Lobos leading the Mountain West. These are the schools you don't get to hear that much through the year. But when come March Madness time, we're going to be hearing about these schools coming up. And hey, UNC Wilmington, right? They're leading their conference. So these are the small schools that you get excited and you got to watch out. And these are the schools that could be your bracket buster. All right. Stay tuned. We're going to be back at y'all next week.
Shout out to Jill. Thank you for the comment for the great show as well.
Yeah.
You gotta have Richard doing his Fly Eagles Fly. We appreciate that
Yes.
much as well. Uncle Les. Yeah.
Thank you, Jill.
Yeah, this is great.
Marcy, Scott,
Yeah.
Shalina. Appreciate y'all tuning in and actually giving some comments as well, giving us some questions. We like the interaction.
All right.
We love it.
Well,
All right,
JQ,
gentlemen,
we'll
have
see
a
you
great
next
rest
week.
of your week.
Take 2 aspirin.
Yeah,
No problem,
JQ. JQ is out right now. He ain't thinking.
And it wasn't the seafood. It was not the seafood.
You might be talking sports in the
I wish
sleep
I'd
right
give
now.
him a pat.
All right.
He's like, I am not doing well. All right, gentlemen. We'll see you guys next week. Appreciate you guys.
All right. Good night.
Stop.
Good night, everyone.